Everyone, in this video we'll be looking at the time and fees module in Capium. So to get started with, we are in the dashboard for time and fees module, and here you'll see the time summary as well as the overall time worked, the job profitability, total time spent by each member of staff, and so on. And you can adjust this dashboard on the top right hand side here by selecting a week or a quarter, depending on whatever time frame you are looking at. Now, in order for your staff to use this module, you would set them up from the Manage section. And within the Manage section, when you've set the users up, the users could be in three types. You have the admin user, who can add time for everybody, approve everyone's timesheets, and bill the customers. Now, the manager's permissions are slightly different to the administrator. They only see the companies assigned to them, and they can only assign and approve the tasks to the jobs that they have been allocated from the get-go, and they can only approve the time of the people reporting to them. And finally, we've got the regular users, and these are the staff members or contractors, and you are able to set them up as regular users in time and fees, and they'll simply go in to add the time for the relevant jobs. Now, if we go into the time section, this is quite straightforward for users to add time. So you can, the administrators are able to see all the users' timesheets. However, if you are a staff user or a manager, you'll see limited amount of users here. The staff users themselves, they'll only see just their timesheets and nobody else's. Now, on here, you're able to add time. So you can select the client from the drop-down list here and add the time for a particular deadline. And you can also narrow it down to a specific subtask and then allocate the time to that specific subtask there. Now, as you see here, there are timesheets added by two members of this firm, Ashton and Risha, and this would be seen in the unsubmitted logs. Now, from the unsubmitted, users themselves can submit the time for approval. So when the timesheets are submitted, they are moved from the unsubmitted pile to the pending for approval pile here. So once you've selected it, the users would usually send just their timesheets. Managers can again select the people who report to them, and an administrator can select everybody. So once everything's been selected, you click on the Submit for Approval button, at which point it's moved from the unsubmitted section to the pending for approval section. Now, in most cases, employees only see the time log and the unsubmitted hours. The pending for approval, approved and rejected, is only available to view for managers as well as the administrators in the firm. Now, from the pending from approval stage, as a manager or admin user, you are able to either reject the time if something's wrong. You can also approve the time here, send out a note, and once it's been approved, you will see it in the approved section here. If it's been rejected, it goes into the rejected section. Now, as you add time, if, for example, a user creates the time log for a job that has not been jobbed in already, the system will automatically create the job, and it would leave the administrator or the manager to go and finalize the job. These settings can again be managed from the Manage section, so things can be changed later on and while you're setting it up based on your organizational layout and how you'd like to structure the software to match your organizational needs. So on this page, you'll see that most jobs which are created by the staff, they'd be created as an ad hoc job, and it's upon the managers or the administrators to change the fee type depending on whatever has been agreed with the client. So you could either move it from non-billable to fixed fee model, or you are able to move it to the time and fee model. Now, as you do that, so let's say if I select time and fees and I say perhaps £50 an hour for this particular task, you can save and exit that job, at which point, going back into the jobs, you'll see that that job is now on time and fees, and the employees can log time against it. It would also show you how much was your internal cost for this job versus how much you're charging the client. So if you see the cost was 175 and the cost is established based on the number of users who've spent their time on here. And when you're setting up the users in the manage section, you can also set up their hourly rates. Again, that information is only visible to the admin users and nobody else, so it can still be kept confidential. Now, moving on to from the jobs section to the fees section, this is where if you've done any number of hours for a particular client, it would be translated into the fees. Now, if we go into add invoice and select a client from the drop-down list, I'll select my demo company. You can click on create an invoice based on track time and expenses, and it will find all the time that you've spent for this one company, and it would give you the overall balance of all the tasks combined. So you are then able to invoice your clients from this section here. Now, following this, there is also, it will also pick up expenses. So let's say if you have not only incurred time costs while doing this job, but if you had to do site visits or any other sort of expenses were incurred in performing a job, you are then able to add that in the expense section here. And as you've added the expenses, they'll reflect in the fees section again. Now, moving on to the report section, this is where you're able to run a number of reports based on time, the expenses that you've spent on, and you can see the invoices that were raised and overall user-based reports as well. So if I were to toggle this to employees, it shows the total number of time spent by each employee, as well as the profitability of the tasks that they've done. So in this case, if you see Ash has spent 4 hours on a task, but that was an ad hoc task. So it has £0 income there. So what the system will do is, based on the rate that you set Ash, it will show you your cost as well as the profitability of that employee on a week-to-week basis. Moving on to the time section. Again, this report can be derived in a number of different ways. You could look at the time spent by client. You could look at the time per job. You can also look at the time as per individual tasks, users, and dates. So it gives you a number of ways by which you could look into the timekeeping and run the reports in the system. The expenses are similar again, so you could either group them by the client-based expenses, task-based expenses, user-based, date-based, and so on. Now, going into the invoice section, it also shows you all the invoices that were raised from within the system. So that's another section. And if I go in for last year or this year, it shows me the invoices that have been paid so far. Now, into the manage section is where you are able to sync your companies through. So from the import button, you're able to synchronize the companies from my admin into your time and fees section. And alongside that, there is also the users section. And in the users section, you will have all the users within your firm in one place. And when you open a particular user, you're able to edit things like how many hours do they work, the rate on which they get paid, and so on. Then there is the task-based report. So based on each task, if you open a particular task, let's say bookkeeping, you can see how many jobs have been assigned in that task in any given point in time. And you can also run a number of different reports on the task. So you can create subtasks, you can track time based on subtasks, you can create users, track time based on users, and so on. So if there are any other questions that you might have in using the time and fees module, you are able to reach out to your onboarding team at cst@capium.com. Alternatively, you can always raise a support ticket at support@capium.com, or by simply clicking on this ticket icon on the top right-hand side of your screen. Thanks for your time.